Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Professor Pastor Paul's Midweek Bible Festival. We are here in the season after Epiphany, and our attention turns to the ministry of Jesus. But before we get into today's lesson, I'd like to say a little bit about what I'll be doing in the month of February. Lent begins in March. Ash Wednesday and Lent begins in March. Through January, I'll be following the lectionary, but in February, for the 4 Wednesdays in February, I'm going to do a special 4-part series on the birds of the Bible. Birds of the Bible in February. So please write that down, remember it. I'll put it in all of our communications, make sure it gets out. But during the month of February, before Lent starts, I'll be doing a special series about the birds of the Bible. We'll have vultures, and we'll have eagles, and we'll have, what else will we have? Of course, doves, which are basically pigeons, and other birds as well show up in the Bible quite a lot. So, we'll be looking at the birds of the Bible in February. But for now, we are in the season after Epiphany. We are looking at the ministry of Jesus. Today we are in the Gospel of John. John chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. 1 through 11. It goes like this. On the 3rd day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tested the water that had become wine, and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to the bridegroom, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Gospel of John. The Gospel of John is sometimes divided into 3 parts. The first part, in the beginning was the Word and all of that, is known as the hymn to the Word. And that's the first 19 verses of the book. The last part, running from chapter 13 to the end and including all the drama around Holy Week, is sometimes called the Book of Glory. The central section in which we find ourselves is known as the Book of Signs. Between John 1:20 and 12:50, we find 7 miracles. Jesus performed 7 miracles or signs in that section. These 7 signs are not magic tricks or conjuring meant to astound people or amaze people or to increase the size of Jesus' following. Instead, these 7 signs are markers along the way, signs pointing to Jesus' glory. 7 clues, kind of like a when you're on a hunt, a search for something. You're looking for clues. 7 clues to the identity and nature of Jesus. That's what these 7 signs are. And today we find ourselves in the town of Cana, about 10 miles north of Nazareth, where a wedding is taking place and where Jesus performs the first of these 7 signs. This is the first of those 7. Here is Jesus there with his mom. Now, Jesus' mom is never named in the book of John. Never see a name. Jesus' mother is there. We don't know who's getting married, but it must be close to Jesus because not only is Jesus and his mom there, but all the disciples are there also. So it's quite a party. Quite a shindig. But sometime into the party, the wine runs out. Now, in such a situation, and that time, running out of wine is not just, like a downer or a buzzkill. Running out of wine is a disgrace. It's a great embarrassment. It's like a social disaster to run out of wine. The family would have to live with the shame of the event, and the bride and groom may very well interpret this as a sign of bad luck for their marriage. So there's different levels here to this running out of wine. It's a bummer. It's a mark on the family. It's a portent of doom for the marriage. So John tells us in the face of this multi-layered crisis, the mother of Jesus turns to Jesus and says simply this: they have no wine. Jesus, they have no wine. Now, this is one of those situations, friends, where the words spoken convey much, much more than their plain meaning. And anyone who has a wife or a husband or a daughter or a son, family member, dear friends, has been in situations where when you know somebody, you can say 3 words and mean a whole lot more than that. A whole world lies beyond these words, they have no wine. Mary is trying to tell Jesus something. There are at least 4 different things behind these words, they have no wine. The first thing, it means they have no wine. The plain meaning. Second, it means I am your mother and you will listen to me. Jesus, they have no wine. Third, it means, Jesus, you are someone special. And fourth, it means that you, being someone special, need to do something about this situation right now. And Jesus gets it. He gets it. Woman, he replies, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour is not yet come. Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? Now, first thing to get clear here is that this term woman, used here by Jesus, it's first century Palestine. It does not carry the overtones of exasperation or humor or even mockery that phrase woman may carry when used by us here in 21st century America. Instead, the term connotes sort of a combination of respect and affection. So it's a normal thing you would call your mother. Jesus is not being snappy here. But he clearly gets the message, and he resists the message. What concern is that to you and to me? My hour is not yet come. Kind of like, back off a little bit, please. Again, not being snappy, just saying like, whoa. Now, the funny thing here, well, he says, my hour is not yet come. Let's talk about that for a second. My hour is not yet come. Perhaps this means that the hour of his glory, which is a major theme of John, which has to do with his death and resurrection, has not yet come. Clearly, that has not happened yet. Clearly, that has not come, for Jesus at this point has barely even, not really even started his public ministry. Jesus never makes a real public showing in John until he overturns the tables, which is the next story in line in chapter 2 here. So, the idea, my hour has not yet come, clearly hasn't come, because Jesus has not even really gotten started yet. So maybe he'd mean something a bit smaller than that. Maybe he sort of is just a little bit, pushing back a little bit on mom saying, I'm not really quite ready to start this thing yet. I know what I've got to do, but I'm a little scared. I think Jesus was probably, he's human. He's going to get scared. Maybe he was like, don't push me into this. Let me do it on my own. I'll decide. Let me decide. But you know what? Mary didn't let him decide, not really. It's so funny. It's so funny. This kind of reminds me of this old joke. The old question about if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? There's a little variation on that theme. It goes something like this. If a man speaks his mind and there's not a woman around to hear him, if a man speaks his mind and there's not a woman around to hear him, is he still wrong? This little scene reminds me of that. Jesus is pushing back, but he knows he's wrong, and he knows that she's right, and she keeps going. She tells the stewards, "Hey, steward," I mean not the stewards, but what's the term? She says to the servants, do what he tells you. So Jesus, of course, begins his work. He knows that mom is right. He knows that his mother is right. So he finds, okay, I'll do it. Mom pushes him. He does it. I find this interaction between Jesus and his mom to be supremely and hilariously human. Really, really is funny, and it does remind me of that joke. Anyway, his mom is right, and Jesus, overcomes his initial resistance. He sees that his mom was right, and the whole thing is so human and so relatable, and it is scary to start something new. Even something you're born to do. Maybe there are other ways to interpret this exchange between the mother of Jesus and Jesus, but I don't know what they are. I think Jesus just wasn't ready to be pushed. But then he saw that it is in fact time. Now, before we move on, it's worth knowing that the mother of Jesus shows up only twice in the Gospel of John, here and at the foot of the cross. That's it. The wedding in Cana for the first sign, and at the foot of the cross. That's where the mother of Jesus shows up. Her appearances, therefore, sort of form a set of bookends to the story, suggesting that she not only knows that Jesus is set apart for something special, not only that she encourages him to begin his work in this story, but also that she keeps up with him and his ministry throughout. She's a mom who loves her son. She keeps up with him. She wants to know what he's up to. Joseph, on the other hand, is named in passing in chapter 1 of John and is not mentioned again. Make of that what you will. Well, back to the wedding, which John's readers know. We're at a wedding here. This wedding resonates with the common Old Testament image of God as bridegroom and Israel as bride. All through the Old Testament. Most obviously in the Song of Songs, but it is throughout the Old Testament. God is bridegroom and Israel is bride. The wedding feast, therefore, would be a familiar sign of the heavenly feast that God prepares for his people. So there's resonances here. Notice, too, that the jars are not standard wine jars. He doesn't just point to a regular wine jar. They are large stone vessels used for the Jewish purification rites. Big old things, 20, 30 gallons each. Being stone, they would not, notice this, they're stone, which if you dig around a little bit, has significance. Being stone, they would not have become unclean if touched by an unclean object or person. If they were made of wood or clay, they would be considered unclean if touched by an unclean object or person, but as stone, they are not. Therefore, God the Father, through his Son here, Jesus, is doing a new thing, but doing it within this sort of old system. This sign is simultaneously old and new. This sign gives ancient symbols new dimensions and new shades of meaning. The story is a clue, as I've said, pointing to the person of Jesus and to his identity. Maybe the story has something to do with Jesus bringing life and joy to the intimate relationship between God and Israel. Even intimate relationships need rejuvenation and new life. Perhaps Jesus has something to do with taking the ritual system of purification and expanding it to those who were previously believed unclean. What I'm getting at here is that these signs are about who Jesus is. Jesus has something to do with bringing life and new joy to the relationship between Israel and God. Jesus has something to do with taking the old ritual system of purification and expanding it to include those who were previously believed unclean. Perhaps Jesus has something to do with filling those who are empty, with celebrating. Maybe Jesus has something to do with generosity, with preservation, with new life. Jesus is one who will provide glimpses of heaven for us. Jesus is one who will transform the everyday, the commonplace, into the miraculous. So again, I'll say it again. Jesus has something to do with bringing new life to the intimacy between God and Israel. Jesus has something to do with taking the ritual system, the old system, and making it new. Jesus has something to do with filling those who are empty with generosity, with celebration, with new life. Jesus will provide glimpses of heaven and transform the commonplace into the miraculous. These are the signs. The book of signs. This first sign indicates that this is who Jesus is. Two final remarks. Number one, John, of course, is composing this in hindsight. John was the last book written of the four Gospels. He's also a brilliant literary craftsman. Knowing this, it is interesting to look back at the first four words of today's text. This miracle, this transformation, this party happened when? On the third day. It's the first four words. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana. Here we have another sign, the third day. A sign within a sign, if you will. Finally, over the next 11 chapters, John goes on to tell more stories about more miracles and more signs. There's the healing of the official's son in Capernaum, the healing of the paralytic at Bethesda, the feeding of the 5,000, walking on water, healing the man born blind, and finally, the seventh of the seven is the raising of Lazarus. But this first sign is centered on everyday and lighthearted joy. It's easy to miss that. This sign is focused on everyday, lighthearted joy and celebration and generosity in a way that none of the other 6 signs are. Let us not forget that Jesus in this sign is not only making a statement about Israel and Yahweh. Jesus is not only telling us about a new way of doing old things, new way of purification. He is not only providing a sign of his death and resurrection. He's doing all these things. But don't miss the simple point that he is telling us to celebrate. He's telling us to not be ashamed of the enjoyments of life. Remember that. He could have told us these things in 100 different ways. He did it by turning water into wine at a party. Do not be ashamed to enjoy life. Do not be ashamed to eat and drink and enjoy it. Jesus is telling us that the pleasures of this world even are good and God-given. That can get lost sometimes in religious language, heavy stained glass sort of ideas. Eat and drink. It's good that we do so. This is a good word at the beginning of a new year. A new year that promises to test us, friends. It promises to test us as we continue to face this wretched pandemic, political strife, and huge social change. Don't forget that Jesus is present and active in the small and everyday good things of life. Enjoy your day. Find something in it to enjoy, to celebrate, to be generous about. Jesus is right there in those things too. Amen. I'll see y'all next time. Have a lovely week.